Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Aqua Forever Plantasm. Now, before I get into this, I have reviewed the first Aqua Teen Hunger First movie film for theaters about maybe last year or 2 years ago or something like that. I forget when I did this, but I reviewed it before and I remember not really caring for it as much as I did back when I saw it in theaters. But this isn't in theaters, this is straight to tape. And it's still considered big screen material, even though it's kind of a small screen movie, sure. But was it worth the wait? Well, let's get into it and we'll see. We open in outer space where we return to our heroes Master Shake, Frylock, and Meatwad, trying to escape from a monster that sounds like their neighbor Carl, while Shake saves their asses and takes forever and they explode. And we go back to today's world where Shake is at a homeless shelter and we get the theme song that reminds me a hell of a lot of Space Jam: A New Legacy. And don't remind me of that film because that was a terrible Space Jam movie. And it's not as good, and it's not a good thing to start off like that. We get the Moon Knights, and not the Marvel character, but the people from the moon, if you remember that one episode, interrupting the movie 3 minutes in and tries to waste enough time as it is, and they'll do it early and often and is absolutely unnecessary. Meatwad rescues more dogs or some dogs I'll say, and takes them to an animal shelter where it's run by Liz, while Frylock wakes up in the morning to work at a job called Amazing, not Amazon, Amazing, where his boss is a little person named Neil, and I honestly thought it was the guy with the drums in the last film, because his name was Neil. While he thinks about the Aqua Teens days, and he goes back to by the name Phoenix, which is a strange way to put it, because he doesn't look anything like the city Phoenix, which looks like a basket in French. He looks more like a basket with French fries and a nose ring, and which looks weird to me. The Aqua Teen's old next door neighbor Carl has some deal with someone that looks like a goblin, and as it turns out, he's the renter and is the reason he let Shake, Frylock, and Meatwad rent the house in the first place until they went their separate ways. And you can never separate the Aqua Teens, as that's a step down from the TV show and the last movie, as I like the TV show much better than what the movies have to offer. We also learn Shake used Meatwad as a basketball and has always been an asshole. And come on, Shake was an asshole to both Frylock and Meatwad on the show, and that's why I relate with Meatwad more, but that's why I relate with Shake the least. But the movies haven't done a good job making me like these characters like in the TV show. We learn a couple different races, one that looks like a booger, and the other I couldn't tell you what the hell that is in general, and that pisses me off. And this isn't as funny as the show as I wish it was better, and I also wish this was making me laugh, but it's doing a terrible job at making me laugh. We catch Carl masturbating on the computer until Shake comes to his house and tries to move in while with Carl, but Carl gives him a box to live at. And I'm like, oh, come on. This movie is dumb enough to fool people, but not me. Frylock gets caught up by some goons while going to Neil's place, and Shake gets burned up by his house, which is horrible because of Carl doing that. And Frylock is at the hospital getting a metal body, and Meatwad gets thrown out and goes to Carl's place and gives Meatwad a place to stay out on his own. Sees a bunch of empty boxes in front of the old Aqua Teen house and takes them despite they don't belong to him, while Frylock dances with Neil. And Neil shoots a tiger dead, and the problem I have is this isn't what the show or is, nor am I enjoying the tiger's death, and all of this is terrible writing in my opinion. Carl smashes the windows of cars, and they learn Amazing pays criminals to beat up on their own employees, as we get the story of Neil capturing the race of boogers and the things I don't know what they are, and they rise against Neil on the next day while at some plant. Monsters rise and attack Shake, Meat, and Meatwad, And we get another interruption from the Moonlight Bastards, I'm going to call them, for the rest of the show. And fast forward and deletes the rest of the movie until the movie hacks in, and we see Shake, Meatwad, and Carl climbing up a building until the Moonlight Bastards are again interrupting the movie once again. And I wish these motherfuckers would stop, honestly. And this is getting to the point where the movie is getting very irritating. Frylock transforms a basketball player to Big Neil and throws him out the window and puts Little Neil in a box and traps him as Meatwad calls Frylock and tries to get him back to the house, while Frylock doesn't want to see Shake because he moved out for being the asshole he is, and Meatwad says he'll keep his dumb ass away from him. And Big Neil gives Frylock the limousine, and Neil's assistant Elmer explains how they're going to take over the neighborhood, which is a dumb plot to a dumb movie that has no heart in it. Shake and Curl disguises Meatwad with white makeup and wig, while Frylock gets to the crib and measures Meatwad's temperature and sees Shake and Curl, and Frylock walks out again. And the two different races vote on getting the fuck out of Amazing. And Frylock is in a board of directors meeting as Big Neil fires them and hires monster plants and realizes Shake was right, as Big Neil is a monster. And goes back to the Aqua teens and saves Shake, Meatwad, and Curl and blasts them half to hell. And they fight together until goes into Amazing and kicks some ass, while Big Neil fires Elmer and turns into the Eliminator, which is a terrible Terminator ripoff, I must say. The Aqua teens and Carl argue with one another as Shake is still the biggest asshole on the team, as he thinks his plan is brilliant while Frylock can't think of a plan. Big and Little Neil arrive to talk with them and cuts to TV credits, which annoyed me. Like, why do you keep doing that? Frylock leaves while Meatwad makes Boxy Cleopatra for him and takes off without Shake, Meatwad, and Carl. And they decide to fight despite Frylock already left with the Neils and work on their fighting skills until the Moonlight Bastards once again interrupts the movie. And I totally lost patience with this movie at this point. Despite it's 75 minutes long, it felt longer than that. And these Moonlight Bastards, you gotta stop, okay? Good Christ, you need to stop. The fight begins with the Eliminator is more powerful than ever, and Frylock and the two Neils are in space, and Shake, Meatwad, and Curl get prepared for the final battle, and as they go there by Curl's badass car, and while Frylock and the two Neils crash land on the moon, we get interrupted once again by the new Moonlight Bastards coming by with a machine called the Mechanites, fighting with their ship, and Carl runs over the planet monsters and kills them with Shake and Meatwad, killing them with the Eliminator coming in to attack Carl. And Carl, Shake, and Meatwad throw bottles of fire at the Eliminator and cools himself off and attacks them, and the two races fight with them as Big Little Neil and lets Little Neil out of the box. Finally! Alright, moving on. While the Mechanite pees on their ship and fights the Mechanite again, and the ship defeats the Mechanite as they once again interrupt the movie and fast forward to the part where they push the moon to destroy the Eliminator, and Frylock decides to go back to the Aqua teens while they're freezing their asses off, and a booger race warm the town up while Frylock and the Neils come back to Earth. And the booger race cuts the Neils up, and Frylock wants to be back, and they get eaten together. And what kind of an ending is that? While the Moonlight Bastards take over the credits, and after the credits, Frylock and Meatwad are eaten up, and vampire guy that Carl was talking to earlier in the film turns Shake into a vampire. And that was a stupid idea, as the climax was very stupid, as this might be worse than when it comes to the Aqua Teen Hunger Force franchise. I feel like it's done on the movie set. Like, go back to TV, guys. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 3.1 out of 10. It's definitely not as good as the TV show, nor is it as bad as the last movie, But this is a little worse as it was terribly written, and I don't like hanging out with the characters after the TV show. The Moon Knights interrupting half the movie is completely unnecessary, and they need to fucking stop. I mean, Jesus. As this movie was irritating the crap out of me with their stupid bullshit. As far as the plot is concerned, you cannot separate the Aqua teens from each other, as this is a complete step down from the TV show as well as the first movie we're in together. They were in together, I should say. And despite how short this movie is, this felt like it could kind of drag. But at the end of the day, I don't really care for these characters in the movies, as I want them back on the TV. Just for fuck's sakes, put them back on TV. So this is a solid non-recommendation. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for coming back to Aqua Teen Hunger Force. And until then, let's go get some meat wad.